How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, the founder of the highest paid part-time job in the world, Options Trading Academy, with a special broadcast. Y'all normally know I don't do morning broadcasts because I'm not a really big morning person. It's a lot for me just to get up and watch the market in the morning. But I went ahead to do a special broadcast because we're in a very, what I would call a special event cycle. And this is the first time that I've traded during any kind of what I would call conflict that's kind of on a worldwide level. So what I wanted to kind of do was cover this, allow people to give me their feedback, give them their feedback, and try to really put some people in a position to where they can put themselves in the best position to be successful. Because what I think we're going to see in the market is a lot of volatility. And I don't believe that the volatility is going to be short-lived. I believe that this is going to continue to remain because of the market being volatile before we already started. So that's pretty much what we're going to talk about. If you have any questions, you have any comments, hit them up in the comments because I want to try to go ahead and create a conversation. But really quickly, this particular show is sponsored by the highest paid online. And if you had taken this particular options trading course and you had applied it, you would understand exactly how to play these type of situations. One of the reasons why we teach what we teach is because we want people to understand how to play both sides of the market, not just be, I'm waiting for the market to go green so I can make some money. Or I believe that every sell-off is a buying opportunity, which it may not be a buying opportunity. I want to put people in a position that regardless of where the market went, they understood how to navigate it where they could be profitable because they kind of understood how the market actually worked, right? And so that's what we teach in this particular course. But it is for people that are action takers, people that want to apply themselves, and people that actually want to get results from what they do. They're not looking for overnight success, and they're also not looking for somebody to feed them the answers to the test, right? The goal is to train you, to educate you, to allow you to put yourselves in a position where you can enter into these type of situations and you can start seeing the possibilities for you and your group to be profitable. So that's the link to the course. I want to encourage you to read, go through it, look at the testimonials, and decide whether or not the investment is worth the results that you want. Now let's go ahead and get into it. So what we've seen, right, over the past, I don't know, really the past few weeks, and we've been talking about this on multiple broadcasts of this issue with Russia, Ukraine, and NATO, where, you know, kind of the United States has to be the face of this conflict. And I had told people before I didn't think anything was going to happen until after the Olympics. And one of the reasons is because Russia has a relationship with China, and I didn't think they wanted to spoil the Olympics for them, right? Because this definitely would have spoiled the Olympics, what's going on right now. So they did some basic movement, and then once the Olympics was over, they went ahead and made their moves. Now, let me tell you something that was very, very, that kind of speaks to how these type of operations are planned. I know some people on Twitter that are really savvy. They took the video that Putin did, I want to say yesterday, that was released yesterday, in which essentially he gave his argument for why he felt like they needed to destroy the Ukrainians' military ability. And when they pulled the metadata from that video, it showed that that video had been made on Monday of this week. So therefore, they already knew earlier this week that they were getting ready to go to war, which makes sense because any operation this big is going to be planned out. It's going to be premeditated. Therefore, all of this was premeditated. They knew they were going to do this. Now, the question you want to ask yourself as a trader is that, how do I think the market's going to react to this? Now, we saw the market was really red today. I'm sorry, it was really red last night. It opened up really red, and then it looks like it's starting to recover. I don't believe in the recovery. I believe the recovery is short covering, right? But we're going to see. One of the challenges with this scenario is that it started so late in the week. We don't know how the market's going to respond to the weekend because between Saturday and Sunday, anything can happen. I had an event that I was planning to go to this weekend in Dallas. I may not be able to make it because I may decide to trade through this volatility because there's a lot of opportunity in these type of markets. And I was going to leave tomorrow. I don't want to miss Friday and also Saturday because I could potentially trade futures on Saturday while this whole scenario is going on, because I think that the anxiety around the weekend could cause a lot more volatility. What I think we're seeing this morning, in my opinion, is a lot of short covering. I also think it's designed to entice people to buy with the idea that the market has already priced this in, but we don't know where this goes. And I'm going to kind of show you with this on the map, right? So that's what I want people to understand, is that where is some of the opportunity that they think they see in the market, either on the overall indexes or in individualized companies. And you want to start asking yourself is that what areas of the market are going to be most impacted by this scenario? So we know that Russia is a major energy exporter, especially of natural gas, but also of oil, but especially of natural gas. How is that going to impact the overall market? So let me give you a heads up really quickly. If oil keeps going up, right, it's going to impact the airline industry, because the airline industry very much plays the futures market on oil or gas, whichever one you want to call it. I don't mean natural gas. I mean gas, like gas that they put inside the plane. So if the futures market for oil or for gas, and I mean gas, I'm talking about what they use to power cars with motors, becomes very volatile or starts to become very expensive, it can impact airlines directly. And so what I want to try to teach people how to do, and what I've always been trying to teach you, like Katrina said, gas like fuel. So I don't mean people like gas, like in Atlanta, we use gas to cook. I don't mean gas like that. Or gas to heat our house. I mean gas like fuel. So this is the goal, was to teach people to start to see these connections, because this whole world is connected. And one of the reasons why I think Putin feels like he can do what he's doing is because so many people are dependent upon the gas that Russia produces. You see, in America, we don't talk about Russia being a big gas producer because we don't use their gas like that. But in Western Europe, they're very much dependent upon gas from Russia. So I believe that Putin felt like I can get away with this because they need my gas. 50% of the gas that is consumed by Germany comes from Russia. However, the question you want to ask yourself is, where does this stop? And I'm going to kind of show you this on the map. So these are the questions that you want to ask yourself, right? What markets are going to be impacted by this, right? And what do I think the impact is going to be? You got to get out of just the binary of what, everything's on sale. Because there's some things that are going to be on sale for a reason. And it may be a very long time before they ever recover, because we don't know where this stops. And I'm going to kind of show you what I want to give an example. And I may go a little bit deeper into it this weekend, because I want to try to bring somebody on this weekend potentially to kind of go a little bit more in depth on this, because this volatility can put you in a position, right, to make a lot of money. And that's how I want you to see the markets. Is it unfortunate that people are going to die? Yes. Is it unfortunate that people are going to get hurt in this? Yes. But you got to realize this is how these people made this world. It got nothing to do with you, right? They made this world behind this kind of activity. And I'm going to kind of talk about that, because I don't understand what Putin thinks he gets. I understand why he did it. But the question is, what does he think he gets out of this? And to be real with you, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I don't think this is about what his deal is. I think this guy's a distraction for what is coming next. And what I think is coming next is I think China's going ready to go take back Taiwan. And the challenge is that if China makes a play on Taiwan, the United States is not going to be able to do nothing about it because of our business relationships in Taiwan. So if China goes to take back Taiwan, the United States just got to sit out of the deal. Why? Because pretty much every major American company that has manufacturing has it in China. Therefore, we can't destroy those relationships, because China would just put those companies out of their country. They're not going to go for that. And I really think that's the real play. I think this is a distraction to get America and NATO preoccupied with this, and China backdoors into Taiwan. And it may not happen in 90 days. It may not happen in 120 days. But I think that's the real play. But they want to see, how do we respond to this to get us tied up with this? Because I don't see how Putin gets out of this based on the Russian economy. But let me show you what I'm talking about on the map, right? Let me go ahead and show you this map real quick. Because this situation in Eastern Europe has been going on a long time. This ain't nothing new. It's just they just starting to talk about it right now. Okay, so here's this particular map. There's Russia, there's Belarus, which essentially now is a vassal state of Russia. So Russia's they have regiments or troops, and I don't know how you pronounce this, and they're now moving into the Ukraine. Russia has already taken Crimea, however you pronounce that. All these are NATO states. So what Russia was tripping over, and I get, they didn't want Ukraine to become part of NATO, And then all of a sudden now, NATO puts weapons in Ukraine that are going to be used against Russia. So I understand him having an issue because we already got nuclear weapons in Turkey pointed at Russia back when we had the Cold War. So Russia's attitude is y'all trying to surround us on the West and on the South with weapons that's going to be used against us if there's ever a war, right? And we're not going for that. The problem is, where does he stop? Does he stop just by taking Ukraine? Or does he now go after these states right here? Right? And then the question is, if he defeats Ukraine from a military standpoint, then what happens after that? So, because his stated goal is we're going to just destroy Ukraine's ability to engage in war against us because he doesn't like that threat against his country. Okay, cool. Now what do you do after that? And so I think people believing that this is going to be a short-term issue. I don't think that this is going to be a short-term issue. I think this can be a long-term issue. Because what you saw in people that's old enough to remember, everybody's old enough to remember the old Cold War, is that after the Allied forces won in World War II, what Stalin did was he took all of those, what we call satellite states, to protect themselves against invasion from the West, right? And then over time, as Russia started to fall, they lost all those satellite states. So essentially, they lost their buffer because, they buffer to the east is essentially the ocean, the fact that it's really, really, really cold. Nobody wants to come in from the east, because there's nothing there. It's all wasteland. So their attitude is we got to protect ourselves from the waste with all these buffer states. Over time, they lost them, right? As the Soviet Union started to fall, they lost all those buffer states. Then as these buffer states that they currently had start to join NATO, then their attitude is, well, we got all these guns pointed at us, right? And we don't like that. So that's the issue. But the other issue is this. Russia is a nuclear power. You can't go to war with a nuclear power. So where does this guy stop? Does he stop at Ukraine? Or does he say, now I want to go into the Nordic states. I want to go into Sweden and Denmark and that. I want to take the North too. And these are the kind of questions you got to ask yourself. And then because of his energy relationships in Western Europe, if you cut off their ability, if you cut all economic activity off of Russia, which is what they want to do the same way they was able to do to Venezuela, Western Europe suffers because where do you replace the energy from? Because they reached out to Qatar. Qatar said we can't meet that energy need. We don't have the ability to do it. So that's what people got to understand is that I don't think this is a short-lived situation. I think this is going to be a long-term situation because I don't understand what Putin is doing, but I just think he doesn't care anymore, right? I just think his attitude, and I think that a lot of these right-wing, quote-unquote, people that think they're conservatives don't understand who this guy really is. You don't become who he was in the KGB because you don't allow yourself to get brainwashed. Then what's interesting is that a lot of these people talk about Marxism and yada, 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 but they're championing a guy who was groomed by Marxists. This is the weirdest thing in the world to me, but I know a lot of people are really not that intelligent. They just talk a lot. So you get a guy who was groomed in a Marxist structure. He elevated himself in a Marxist structure. They reformed the government for whatever, really for economic reasons, not because they don't believe in that ideology anymore. It's just the economy was failing. He got into a position of power, but he was a byproduct of that particular system. So that's one of the reasons why they're cool with China, because they and China really have the same ideology, right? It's just they just run a little bit of a different system because the Russian economy failed because they got into an arms race with the United States. And that's what I don't think people really understand. I don't know why, and I'm not against the guy, but I don't know why they're promoting him at the same time be talking about critical race theory as Marxism. So are you against Marxism or are you for Marxism because you're supporting a Marxist? The reason why Trump liked the guy because Trump was getting financing from Russia. So he had to play nice with the guy because Putin could have cut off all his financing. So he had to kiss Putin's ass. That don't mean I got to kiss the guy's ass. But if you are a Trump flunky, I guess you feel like I got to like who Trump likes. But you don't even know why he even liked the guy. And that's what I want people to understand. is that this situation, I don't think is short term. So even though the market has rebounded, especially from where it looked like it was going to open up this morning, the market like it was going to tank this morning, it has rebounded. That could be short covering. That could be some inflows so the market won't totally tank. Because what we've seen over the past few weeks is the market to sell off around 1%, 1.5%. It'll recover a little bit. It'll sell off around 1.5%, 1%. We're not seeing what we saw in 2020 where we're losing 5 or 6% a day. They don't want to do that. They're slow selling this thing. The problem is, if you look at it over a 30-day period, the market will be down 25%. But it didn't happen in 1 week. It happened over 30 days. So if the market today ends down 2% or 1.5%, well, the market closed red yesterday too, right? Then we lose another 1% today. Then we lose another 1% on Friday. Then we open up on Monday. We lose another. So then we look at it over a 30-day period. We might be down 25% on the overall indexes. And that's what I want people to understand. This thing doesn't have to happen all at one time. I don't think they're doing that right now. I think they're slow selling this down. So that's what I want people to understand is this might not be over because Putin, I don't believe that he just wants to destroy Ukraine's ability to engage in warfare. I think he's thinking I got to take some territory and I got to create a buffer because the United States is going to try to do me the same way they did Venezuela. And what they did in Venezuela is they created economic sanctions. They did not allow Venezuela to engage in commerce with other countries. Venezuela has to do a lot of things to the black market because what they wanted the elites of Venezuela to do was to get rid of Maduro and to get rid of that ruling party. But that didn't happen. They're trying to do that now with Russia, but it may not work. And I just think Putin has accepted. I might just go out in a ball of flame with this thing. He's an older guy. I don't think he really cares how this ends up because I'm going to show you with charts. The Russian market is doing terrible. And the guy doesn't care. This doesn't help the Russian market. This war doesn't help them. And I don't think he cares. And I always thought the job of the president of a developed country was to protect the economy. I don't think this guy cares anymore. So the question is, what stops this from continuing to escalate? And like I said, I don't think it has to happen all in 1 week. This can turn into a long-term scenario that just keeps flaring up until we figure out what's going to stop this, right? And I'm going to kind of show you that in chart. So let's go to the next one. So here's the map. He may not stop with the Ukraine because he already took Crimea. When he took Crimea, they should have tried to do something about it. They didn't do anything. He got a Belarus as a vassal state. Essentially, Belarus is working for this guy, right? So they on Russia's team. So now he want to get the Ukraine so that now he got a little bit of a shield against, a massive invasion because now either you got to go through these states to get to Russia or you got to come from the north, right? And so that's what this guy's trying to do because he's realizing that we're being boxed in. And Russia does not have the relationship with the United States that China does. We can't attack China. We got too much business with them. So if they go try to attack Taiwan, there's nothing we can do about it. And people say Taiwan has weapons. They do. Taiwan cannot defend themselves against China. They'll have to ask for help. And I don't know who's going to help them. Taiwan cannot defend it. If China decides that they're going to take Taiwan, Taiwan going to fall. It may take some time, but Taiwan does not have the military and probably definitely does not have the resources to get into a prolonged struggle with the Chinese, right? And I really think that's the real play. I don't think this is even the play. I just think this is something that they're just doing. I think they got Putin to do this to get the U.S. and NATO tied up into what this guy's doing because he doesn't care anymore. So they can now try to backdoor their way into Taiwan. And it may not happen this week. It may not happen in 6 months. It may happen in a year. But I think that's the real play, right? And so the United States got to figure out how they're going to deal with that. And also as a trader, you got to ask yourself, because if we have an issue with China, Apple's going to tank, Nike's going to tank, Tesla's going to tank, Walmart's going to tank. All these companies are going to tank because if we get into a big conflict with China, they'll push those companies right out of their country. They don't care. They're not going to go for any kind of dissent against their actions in the world. China don't play those kind of games. Putin will go back and forth with you. China don't do that. So let me show you this next chart, right? This is the RSX, and I showed this yesterday, right? So this is a holding of multiple Russian companies, right? This is the RSX. Look at it on the 1 year. Right? So this is 2020. It got back up to 32.50. It's been selling down ever since. Right? So this economy is not doing great. Here's the ERUS. Right? Our shares, MSCI Russia ETF, ERUS, same thing. This thing's been selling off. So I don't know what Putin's doing because this economy that he's over is not great. Here's the MOEX Russia index. Here's an index. Look at this. This is the Russian stock market, essentially. So it topped out here. It has been selling down ever since. The last few days it's been tanking really, really hard. So the Russian markets are in very, very bad shape. And this guy just doesn't care. Right? Now, you are seeing people buy into it because their attitude is, well, we're going to buy. Everybody likes to try to buy the bottom. The question is, where is the bottom? Right? Where is the bottom with this deal? And that's what I want people to understand is that if you can start trying to figure out where the connections are in this volatility. So we're looking at other world markets. What countries are not as dependent upon oil or gas to run their economy? There are countries in this world that are not as dependent upon oil or gas to run their economy. What countries are those? That may be where the opportunity's at. Right? We're now starting to see the demand for why we need alternative energy sources. Because when you have relationships with these countries and you need their energy, they will try to dictate to you how things are going to go. Why? Because you need our energy. Right? So what countries that we think in the world have fairly developed markets that don't need gas or don't need oil to run their economy? And then when you have those kind of answers, then you can try to figure out, okay, where do I think inflows might be? Right? And that's what I want people to understand. Now let's look at the overall markets. Let me pull that up real quick. We got a Yahoo stock. Okay, so S&P 500. So the NASDAQ recovered a lot. NASDAQ was down like 4% last night. Look at the S&P 500. Let's look at the 1 day. See, so it got down. And now it's starting to recover back up. So we down around 1% on the day. But let's look at the 5 day. See the 5 day? So like I said, we don't have to lose a lot every day. We can lose 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. This may fill this gap. And if it fills the gap, then we want to see what direction it goes. I don't ever expect anything to go straight down and straight up. You may have something fall down or sell off. And over the course of 30 days, you may have 7 days of green. But over a 30-day period, it could be negative. And so what we're seeing, let's look at the monthly of the S&P. This is the monthly chart on the 1 day. So we're seeing it hit that 4,600 and it's just been selling down since. Now you do have green days in the middle, right? Let's go to the 3 month. So the 3 month at 4,800. Sold down, some green days, sold down again, came back up. Everybody said the market's rallying. We consolidated, sold back down. So you rarely get, unless you get a total collapse, where the market sells all the way down or the market drives all the way up. But if we keep getting, let's go to the 1 year. So this is the 1 year, right? Let me go to the weekly candles. See, so on the 1 year, on the weekly, this is a red week, 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 this is a red week. We got 2 green weeks. We got a small green week here. So from 4750, and we're now at 4183. And I had 4200 as being the key number. We're already well under that. I had 40. I was going to come out this weekend and tell people, I was going to do a video, tell people 4200 is going to be the key number. That we're under that now. And so that's what I want people to understand. The market looks like and it's trying to rebound. Let's go to the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is down 0.39. So the NASDAQ has recovered somewhat on the daily. So that's the daily, right? So we're almost filling this gap. Same thing, but look at the 5 day of the NASDAQ. So like I said, is we don't have to dump 6% every day. We can lose 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, and then you'll look up at 30 days and you'll be down 25% over the month, right? Unlike what we saw happen. So that's how you know we can be in a bearish market where none of the bullishness always gets sold back off. So you will have some bullish days, but then it gets sold back off. And you get some bullish days and it gets sold back off. Because when I saw some tickers open up today, I was like, man, this is terrible. But they recovered. But I think a lot of it is short covering. There's so much short activity in the market right now currently. I think shorts are covering, and then they're going to try to figure out, are we now going to go back in on short selling? We're going to go back in on puts. But they're taking their profit and they're trying to figure out what their next move is going to be. I don't think this situation is over, though. And the issue with that, it being close to the weekend, you never know what's going to happen Saturday or Sunday. And then we go right back into it on Monday again. And I want to see how people react on Friday as we get closer to this weekend. Do they start becoming anxious? Yada, yada, yada. Because I don't think sanctions are going to stop this guy from doing what he's doing. I don't think he cares. And unless there's a Russian elite of business people that decide that this guy's bad for business, I don't think anything happens to this dude. And we don't know what their relations, because like I said, that's what they tried in Venezuela and it didn't work. The rich people of Venezuela just had to leave Venezuela and go do something else because they could not get Maduro out of power. So that's what I want people to look at. So I may do more of an in-depth video. I'm going to try to get somebody to come on with me Saturday to talk about the SPY. If that works. But we may go a little bit more in-depth on Saturday and get people to really understand where do we think the opportunity is at in this market. Because there's going to be a lot of opportunity because of the volatility. But I want to tell people, just because you see a short-term trend, I would not, in my opinion, assume that's where the market is going. Because we still got to roll into, I think, March 10th. We get CPI data, which is right around the corner. We also still got to roll into the next Fed talk, which is also in early March. So with all of this going on, we still got to roll into the Fed situation, and we still got to see what the next inflation number is going to be on top of this. So this mentality of just buying the dip, unless you're buying like really well-established companies, which is to me what you should be buying anyway. I wouldn't look to buy companies real cheap, trying to find like the gems, unless you're buying like companies that are already established. Like Apple, I hope Apple falls to $50. Right? But it probably won't. But, you know, I seen a guy saying that, you know, Palantir is going to go down to $5. You should buy it. If Palantir goes to $5, you probably should wait for them to have earnings, in my opinion, before you start buying that. So I would be wary of a lot of these really cheap companies that are very speculative, thinking I'm buying in at the bottom. We don't know where the bottom's at yet. And like I said, if this rolls over to China, it's going to cause a lot of issues. And I really think that's what the play is. I don't think this is really the play. I think Putin is just doing this just to be doing it. And I understand why he's doing it. We wouldn't allow we would not allow China to put weapons in Mexico. We go to war behind that. So I understand what he's doing. The question is, where does he stop? And so those are the kind of questions you want to ask yourself, right? There's a lot of opportunity in this market. There's a lot. I still have plays in this market. Wayfair did earnings this morning. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Was it Wayfair? So Wayfair did earnings this morning. It was negative. They came out really, really bad. I think they opened at 100 this morning. Let me see where their chart was at. Right now, I already exited one Wayfair put, but I'm still in some more, right? So they opened here around 100. They got bought into, and now they're around, 118, right? I think they continue to sell off because here's their yearly chart. Right? So this one, let's say even Wayfair was a closed green today. It don't change the trend, right? Wayfair was at 275 in November, right? They're right now trading at 119, right? Carvana has earnings this afternoon. Zoom got earnings in the Monday. This is not a time to have a bad earnings print because of the way the market is selling. Right? It's just not the era to have a bad earnings print. So they open really, really low. Let's go to the 5-day. They open really low. Let me get off this 5 minute. Let me go to the 1 hour. They opened really low today, right? And then they recovered a little bit. but the potential for them to continue to sell off to down 2% on the day at 11:04, the potential for them to continue to sell off is very much there because their earnings isn't great, right? So that's what I want people to understand is that I don't think this is a time to buy Wayfair. I would wait to see how do they report over the next week. Let me show you something else. So they're green, right? But if you look at their yearly chart, this is their yearly chart on the daily, right? So we're talking about at one time they were 400 and they just sold all the way down. So yeah, they're green. So they've had green days in the midst of this. But if we look at them over the course of the yearly chart, they just been selling down, gap down, sold down, gap down, keep selling down. It just won't stop selling. So they may close green today, right? And I think that'll be because of short covering. It won't matter. They got a report on Monday. And if the report isn't stellar, it can be very detrimental to them. So you may see a lot of volatility on this ticker tomorrow because of people positioning themselves. And a lot of times when you get closer to earnings date, a lot of options becomes very volatile. So I don't want people to get baited into this individual companies looking decent today because we see the overall market is still red. The NASDAQ is not as red as the other indexes, but the NASDAQ has been very, very much beaten down. So it may be starting to stabilize a little bit. But like I said, we go into this weekend. Look at crude oil, right? And crude oil don't even move fast like this, right? So crude oil is moving up, right? And it's sold down from 100, so 100 being the resistance. So the question is, what gets it back to this 100? So it's 97.33 on the day. And it's sold off. So that's the thing is that I wouldn't let like a short-term bullish activity throw me off. I would sit back and observe. And if you have the ability, I would play the volatility. But I just think for any company that has any negative news, this is probably going to be the worst time to report any negative news because it's going to get compounded by the fact that the market is already red. There's a lot of anxiety in the market. And I don't think people are going to want to take chances on a company that may not be reporting well in this particular market. Right? So we got any questions before we get up on out of here? Because I think I got another live stream later today. So she says CNC got great issue. Airline semiconductors, autos. Okay, I'm gonna check that out, Katrina. Calling real estate stories, what's going on? So the question is, ask yourself, let me write this right here. Yeah, I forgot. Let me ask you something. I forgot one thing too. Let me put this in here. Okay, so ask yourself, what country would benefit from the energy crisis? Let me go into the VIX real quick. I forgot about that. Okay, so the VIX is 34. So heads up, and I was going to put this in my Discord before I decided to do this live. So look at the VIX on the 5-day. So we see a gap up, massive gap, then it's sold down. Okay, so now what do we know because we understand the VIX, right? Let me get rid of this real quick. Options premiums are not going to be elevated. So if you're buying now, and this is not investment advice, I'm not an investment advisor. If you're buying now, so I'm not even going to say you, I'm going to say me. If I was buying options today, tomorrow, maybe even Saturday, I would be looking for intraday or short-term trades. Why? Because the VIX is very elevated. The VIX opened up today at what? Almost 36, right? So the VIX opened up today at 36.72. It's sold down some. It may get all the way back down here, but that's the issue. So the VIX right now is at 34.18. It's up 10%. So let's say I were to buy contracts here. I would be looking to get out today or in a relatively short amount of time. Why? Because I'm buying at high implied volatility. So this lets me know that even though I'm seeing certain companies being red, certain companies going green, I'm seeing that the indexes have kind of recovered a little bit. There's still a lot of anxiety in the market just based on the VIX being up 10%, right? So as a result, it's going to impact options premiums. Therefore, if I was buying in now, I would be looking to try to get out short amount of time today, maybe tomorrow, or I would believe that what I was buying into would continue to fall apart at a very rapid pace. What I would not want is for me to buy into something and it starts to consolidate, because what it means is that I bought in at a high volatility, but then the volatility started to soften because based on the VIX, we're in a very volatile scenario. And that's what I want people to understand. A lot of people are going to be looking at the indexes and being like, oh, where they're recovering. But the VIX is telling us that we're at high volatility, right? That's what it's telling us we're at. And that's what I want people to really understand is you got to kind of look at the market for what it is, not necessarily what you want it to be. And this is why I try to help people understand how to do more than just buy the dip. Because there's a potential that you could buy the dip today and it just keeps on dipping.